In a world spiraling into darkness and chaos, only a handful dare to stand up and push back against the insanity that is quickly shadowing and extinguishing what's left of light and truth. In this no-holds-barred podcast with truth directly from the Word, Michael is one such voice, punching through this darkness to dispel the deception and lies being pushed on this planet from all sides. Buckle up, place your trays in the upright position, enjoy the ride. Bullet Points.
If you've made it this far, we ain't done yet. In preparation for putting those shots downrange in tonight's podcast, I kept hearing, "No man knows the hour nor the day." I believe I got on the pre-trib rapture crowd about pulling that one from a chapter that they say is not for us just last week. Let's set the crosshairs on it and pull the trigger. No man knows the hour nor the day. Matthew 24:36. Let's hear it. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Okay, within the context of Matthew 24, verse 1 through 34, are all, let me repeat that, are all pointing to the events from the day that the daily sacrifice is taken away until the abomination of desolation is seen ascending the holy place, and all that he's going to bring upon those in Judea, finishing in the harvest after the 45 days of hell on earth. And mind you, once again, verse 31, not being a rapture and all, we've got to nail this shot on just what Jesus was applying the no man knows the hour nor the day to. First shot from verses 5 through 24 are all in the first half of the 7-year tribulation, dealing with the abomination of desolation's arrival and that 1335th day, up unto verse 25, when Jesus then goes ahead and tells his disciples, and us for that matter, exactly what his own coming would look like, so that verses 23 and 24 could not be pulled over our eyes or those in Judea. What Jesus is saying here is that his coming, as in Revelation 19, and his arrival is not denoted in any of these verses. Now, this is going to get deep, so buckle up for this one. Jesus stating that no man knows the hour nor the day begins to take focus in the scope in verse 32. Let's read. Now learn a parable of the fig tree when his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves. Ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things that he's explained to us so far, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Second shot. Here we are in Matthew 24 at verse 36, having to look backwards in all we just covered and figure out what 24-hour window Jesus is speaking of. Is he speaking of verse 35? Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. This is not easy to articulate, and if the listener doesn't get this and understand it, I've failed to hit the bullseye, and that's not our goal here. Third shot. What we can go ahead and flat out call bullseye on Jesus is 100% emphatically not speaking of any pre-tribulation rapture when he said no man knows the hour nor the day. If in the context of Matthew 24 thus far, you're holding on to that one and applying it from a chapter you say is not to or for us, and are referencing that pre-fantasy rapture, you're about 10 minutes away from the most embarrassing moment of your life. Let's hear two verses in the context of all Jesus said in Matthew 24 once more. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Certainly we know heaven and earth will pass away. We're told as much in Revelation 21 and verse 1. But Jesus' words and all he said here in Matthew 24, these are not passing away till everything he said that we covered be fulfilled. This is where it gets interesting and the twisting of the chronology of events begins. Once again, let's include verse 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Then Jesus goes on into telling us of his coming. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. I believe we covered the verses just after verse 39 here. 2 in the field, 2 in the bed, and tonight pointing the listener to Revelation 14, verses 14 through 20. If you don't hear 2 here and 2 there in those verses in Revelation 14, one swing of a sickle throwing the harvest one way and another swing of the sickle throwing its harvest the other way, right here firing an armor-piercing round. If you've got rapture still on your mind, you've been bewitched. Because this event of the harvest, the gathering of the elect, is detailed in Revelation 12, and it ain't a resurrection nor the rapture. I'm just tired of watching so many arguments between both camps of the prees, arguing for hours with each other this way and that when neither one of them have a clue as to what they're even talking about. Remember me saying truth hijacked? Matthew 24:31 and Revelation 14:14 through 20. All the parables, even the 10 virgins, 5 wise and 5 foolish, are pointing right to the target I've pointed out tonight. Not a pre-trib, pre-wrath, rapture. Both of these groups, 101%, have missed the target altogether. Revelation 12, that's the bullseye. Let me get back on point here. We're going to get to all this in more detail for sure. For now, that day and hour, that 24-hour window of time that no man nor angel but the Father only knows. Zechariah was shown that day and hour, though he was not shown when the day and hour would be. He was shown what the event most certainly is. 21 verses scope it out with precision accuracy. And if it doesn't click for you here, if you just can't lock and load on this one, Lord help you. Zechariah 14, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. I do believe we covered this one in the tail end of last week's podcast. You might want to go back and take a listen. For now, it's the day in question, the same one. No one knows the hour nor the day of its unfolding. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and then the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in a day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. Did you catch that? The day of the Lord from verse 1, when all the nations are gathered against Jerusalem. Verse 2, then the Lord will go forth to fight. And in that day his feet will stand upon the Mount of Olives and crack it in half. Verse 4, a day not light nor dark. Verse 6, that only Jehovah knows. Verse 7, and it's not rocket science. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. Firing a bullet point here. Living waters here in verse 8. Cite up Revelation 7 and 17 concerning the great multitude, and see what you can see. Verse 9, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one, and the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, and it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place. From Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate, unto the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananiel unto the king's wine presses. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. We could go off on a rabbit trail here with verse 11 talking about a time when Israel will be safely inhabited in comparison with a very famous set of chapters from Ezekiel. Another podcast, perhaps. Continuing. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in what day? In that day that a great tumult from the Lord shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the ass, and of all the beasts that shall be in these tents, as this plague. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto the Lord, and the pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them, and seeth therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. If in the context of these 21 verses, with Zechariah giving it to you, both barrels straight to the chest about that day that was ascribed to him in verse 7 as being the day that no one knows but the Father. Well, see you next week. Blessings to you and yours in Jesus' name.
Bullet points.
Wake me